thriving, playing, living life to the fullest. Our mission for Kansans since 2003. We are Kansas Spine and Specialty Hospital, proudly supporting KPTS, Public Television for Kansas.
The following program is brought to you by TZ Productions, celebrating KPTS's nearly 50 years of community support in South Central Kansas. Great starts here on KPTS.
These stories are like old friends. Their lives radiate from the screen like prophets of the past. They were teachers, but not in a classroom. Instead, they taught about life to those around them who cared to listen, and I was their student. They were deeply in love, yet she was in a state of occasional turmoil. Good evening, everyone. We're glad to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Dwane Wallace was an aviation pioneer and mogul, a business giant on both the local and international stage.
I interviewed him back in 1981, a few years after he retired. Now, we'll show you that story first. Then you'll hear what his wife, Velma, had to say 10 years later.
I stood there and watched him go over until he went almost out of sight. And I thought, that's the way to go. That's the way to live.
And Dwane Wallace has been living aviation ever since. But he also has another life away from his business. And that life is tucked away in Butler County at a very private place he calls the farm.
A friend of mine built that for us and set it out here. And everything, the crows were there this morning. The crows get hungry too. They get hungry too.
Wallace was born on a farm in Belmont, Kansas in 1911, and the boy may have left the farm, but the farm never left the man.
Now there's deer tracks, see them? They've got two, you can tell them. That's a pretty good sized deer. The muskrats bury in from the lake, come clear out here, and they big, great big holes. See this? Muskrat holes. I tell you, those rascals dig it out as fast as they can fill it in.
The lake on the property was dug by Wallace. Now it provides his recreation.
I'd feel funny if we got a good one on out there. Bass about the only thing biting right now.
The water stayed calm and the fish didn't take the hint.
Well, they're just not biting this morning.
Near the lake, a spring bubbles out of the ground.
This is a favorite spot down here. You get an idea of the flow of it right here. Now this water remains 58 degrees all the year around, never freezes over. You can see it gurgling. You can see the minnows over there playing around the spring. But I feel at home out here.
Among the woods that he loves, Wallace reflected for a moment on his life.
I've been very fortunate because my occupation has really been my avocation. And to get up in the morning and go to work has always been a pleasure and a joy. And it all contributes to the fullness of life, just like the place here. It's a balance. But Velma and I have been very, very, very fortunate.
If he seems to be a humble man, he is.
Well, there's always something to do. That heavier coat feels good this morning.
With Dwane Wallace, a fella feels as comfortable as an old shoe.
I got thinking last night how old these were, Velma. And they have to be 35 years old. Still in good shape, aren't they?
They're in good shape, like the man who wears them. Inside, a warm fire reflects the personality of Dwane Wallace, the tall farm boy who became one of the most respected names in the field of general aviation.
I'm just an ordinary guy that's worked hard. That's something you like to do.
Dwane Wallace, the legend. I'm Larry Hatteberg.
Much loved, much admired, Dwane Wallace was truly a great guy. But because of his prominence, Dwane was often considered a bigger-than-life character, getting the star treatment wherever he went.
You may have noticed in that video that his wife Velma was almost a ghost. We only saw her from behind, from a distance.
And sadly, that's how Velma felt for a portion of her life together. Now, not because of Dwane, but because of the way others reacted when they were together. Here's the story I did about her back in 1991.
Never in my fondest dreams, never in Dwane's and my fondest dreams did we ever think that the company would grow to what it was.
And grow it did. It made the Wallace family wealthy, but for Velma, life wasn't always that way.
We had no plumbing, no running water. I dressed behind a pot-bellied stove with a sheet around it.
She was the daughter of a Sedgwick County dairy farmer.
I was a very shy little girl. I even used to run when people would come to the house. I'd run and hide.
And then she married Dwane Wallace, a Kansas farm boy who was destined to be an aviation legend.
I'm just an ordinary guy that's worked hard. That's something you like to do.
So as Cessna grew, Velma Wallace became the corporate wife, and she hated the limelight.
I didn't like it at all. And I went to the Cessna meetings because I had to go. But I didn't like it because, well, it was a lack of confidence that I'd never been put in those positions before. So it was very, very new, very frightening to me.
But never forget, Dwane and Velma Wallace were deeply in love.
He confided in me, well, I would say everything.
But she was having problems. Like many others whose spouses are famous, she found people sometimes didn't care who she was.
Well, people probably won't take this the way I mean it. But to always have people talking, Dwane does this, it's Dwane, Dwane, Dwane. And I was a non-entity. And they perhaps didn't mean it that way, but that he was who he was, and I was proud of him. I loved him, and it will always be that way. Wallace office. It was difficult.
For years, Velma Wallace kept the secret, loving her husband and hating her insecurities.
It was so difficult sometimes, I wasn't sure I could handle it. And I would have gone for help, but that would not have been right. Dwane would not have approved.
Then, 2 years ago, Dwane died after a short illness. Velma's life almost came apart. Her daughter convinced her to get counseling.
I would have gone into the depths of depression if I had not had help, and I highly recommend it.
Through counseling, Velma found she had strengths, and those insecurities that had haunted her for a lifetime melted away. She was becoming her own person.
I think I've set some goals for myself now. I have some goals, things that I want to accomplish. And health permitting, I'm going to accomplish them.
In her large East Side home, friends sometimes ask her if she should move to a smaller place.
Dwane built it for me, and we had some time, some very precious 2.5 months here together, and then I intend to stay here.
And she intends to stay involved in life. And she still pilots her own plane.
It's nice to be up in the wide blue yonder and look down on the beautiful earth, and you wonder how there can be so much trouble.
And from then on, Velma did indeed forge her own identity as a generous philanthropist and community volunteer. She lived another 20 years before passing away in 2012 at age 95. Truly an extraordinary woman who came into her own. She was much loved by the community.
Even just 2 weeks ago, the Wallace Foundation was giving money away. And we remember her when that happens.
That's right. She had the community in mind and was always a great patron of the arts.
Her legacy lives on.
And we miss her.
The Kansan in this next story hasn't become a millionaire mogul, but she has created a successful business and is living her dream.
Meet Courtney Neal of Toronto, Kansas.
Well, we now have a population of about 297 in town. Well, we're 4 blocks any way that you go. I was impressed with how they treated a stranger. It's a different kind of life than what I've ever had. I've moved around a lot, and some of these people have lived here forever. I asked one woman, have you lived here all your life? And she said, oh no dear, we moved away for a couple years. And I said, oh, where'd you move to? And she said, Eureka. That's 18 miles west of me. And to her, that was moving away.
On Toronto's Main Street, there is a new business, Courtney's Place, and you're listening to Courtney Neal's experience in this Woodson County town.
It's a dream come true, and it's also an art project. I had always wanted and thought it would be really cool to have a business and live upstairs. It was practical, and it just sounded like a fun idea. That's the day I bought this building.
A few years ago, Courtney was a stranger here. She came from Florida, and she knew she didn't have enough retirement money, so she was looking for a new start.
My brother and sister-in-law were in Kansas and kept saying, oh, come to Kansas, come to Kansas. So I started out. The RV blew up halfway. I'm towing my car and everything I own. I get up here to Kansas, and I'm here about 3 days and fall and shatter a knee.
But she had a dream to start her own business. Now, it took her 5 years, but she did. And now she's here in Courtney's Place.
It's a small little town. I put 5 businesses in here. I have Divine Pizza and Bring Your Own Bowl Pasta House. This is the English Muffin, where I do baking. I have Tea for Two, which is a dessert room or a tea room. Toronto Trinkets, featuring Kansas-made products. And the Cone Zone, where I have soft serve ice cream and milkshakes. And this is my cut table, and it is the altar out of the Presbyterian Church. I got it at an auction. I decided not to cut it down. I figured God has a sense of humor. I've got the altar, and I named it Divine Pizza.
The old town is reflected in the store. A 92-year-old woman sells her quilts here. There's a bullet hole from an old town street light. It now adorns her ceiling.
And I think, man, I've really led a charmed life. I mean, it was scary to break a leg, to lose everything that you had, to be down to being destitute. But you can't give up. You just got to keep trying and plugging away. And people like me want to get out of the big city. They want a quieter kind of life. They want to be able to, oh, that old cliche, stop and smell the roses, and you can do it in a little town like this. So I encourage everybody, please come. Find a little town, you know, make it your own. You have so much to give and so much to get back when you do something like that.
Now that was 2004. Since then, Courtney's Place has gotten bigger and better. Take a look at it now. The business has morphed into an upscale Italian restaurant. The store and the ice cream shop had to go in order to make room for more dining space. There's also a charming courtyard in back. Now, Courtney says she's a living example of what happens when you pursue your dream. Find out more about the restaurant by clicking on the link on the Hatteberg's People page at kpts.org.
Now to another amazing Kansas woman. You might call her a woman for all seasons.
Now her name is Michelle Pence. She lives in my hometown of Winfield. Take a look.
Michelle Pence is a woman of many faces.
I do find that my life surprises people. I think it's unexpected to them, and I'm surprised that they're surprised.
More about that in a moment, but first, in Winfield, Michelle Pence is a performing arts and discipleship recruitment coordinator at Southwestern College.
This is very much a long-term relationship between you and the institution that you choose.
Her life is different, though, than many career women. She is a Navy veteran, a former police officer, and a woman with a passion for metal.
What does a welder look like?
A welder looks exactly like Michelle Pence. In her spare time, Michelle is known as the ponytail welder.
There is something beautiful in every facet of this world, and you have to find it. And then you have to find your place with it.
In her backyard workshop, smoke, burning metal, and sweat are her only perfume.
My art is happy, and my art is purposeful, and my art has a story with each piece. I haven't seen a piece of metal or a car that I don't like because there is so much potential.
At Winfield's Gallery 1001, Michelle's artwork from car parts always a crowd pleaser. Popular are the metal flowers, a fish, and sunflowers.
In nature, sunflower florets grow in a spiral pattern.
And of course, many more, all cut from rusting cars by a woman who sees beauty where others see neglect.
I have had a love affair with horses since I was a little girl, and their muscles and the way they move just completely enchant me.
One of her favorites is this piece, again, made from old car parts called spirit horses.
You know, if I can get it out of the scrapyard and into someone's house or their yard as something way cool, then I have done a very good job that day. I don't know without art that I really am. These are some fenders that I'm done with.
So with Michelle's art coming from the most unlikely places,
I like these white hoods, but they need just a little bit of added fun.
she is calm in her existence and says if destiny has another path for her, she'll take it too.
I am so very blessed.
I love that. Go, Michelle. What is she up to now?
Funny you should ask that question, Susie. Take a look.
Good afternoon, KPTS land and Larry Hatteberg fans. My name is Michelle McLean-Pence, and I'm the ponytail welder. I've had a lot of you ask me what I've been up to since June of 2013 when my piece aired on Larry Hatteberg's People. Well, today we're going to have a little shopping expedition so I can show you what I've been up to. One man's cast off is another's creation. This is my muse, and so let's just start shopping. So one of the things that I like to do when I come to the scrapyard is look for things with great patina. Keep in mind that I don't paint anything anymore, so whatever I make and send out the door is exactly what I found. Woo! Here's a back for a sunflower. I'm gonna need that. Some of the great finds from piles like this go to make artwork for auctions for Habitat for Humanity, the Cowley County Humane Society, Hope Art, and many others.
Whoever thought that a pile of scrap metal could be turned into so many beautiful things? Those are gorgeous.
They are, and she has great talent, and it's from this woman who, it's totally unexpected. You would not expect her to be able to weld and do all those things. And I don't even know why I'm saying that, because she can do anything she wants.
Yeah.
And obviously she does with a great, great talent.
All right, now we're going to show you another golden oldie. This is from 1984.
Now, the man in this story was, as we used to say, a hail fellow well met. His name, Arden Bentley. His game, keeping the folks in Pratt on the straight and narrow, but always with a smile.
All in all, if the weather's nice, it's the finest job in town.
Community Service Officer Arden Bentley of Pratt marks more than car tires in the course of his job. He puts his mark on every life he touches.
How you doing this morning? Good.
If being a policeman was based on popularity, Arden Bentley would be a winner.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Bentley gets kidded about being the Pratt version of Barney Fife on the old Andy Griffith Show. Well, it rarely upsets him, and he says seldom does anyone give him a hard time.
Not in this place, they don't. There's more laugh at me than the hard time, I think.
And so it goes.
Morning. What you got there? Oh, that's my working stick. Ain't that neat? All rise. I now declare Municipal Court of the City of Pratt, Kansas in session. Rob Eisenhower presiding. Please be seated.
Bentley's other duties include bailiff for the municipal court.
Pratt 30.
And part-time police dispatcher.
In 430.
Bentley's just a really special person. When he retires one of these days, he's going to be very, very missed around here.
As dayside dispatcher, Martina Miller hears a lot about Arden Bentley, especially his stories.
This great big guy, oh heck, he must have been about 6'1", weighed about 200 pounds, stopped me and he said, "Hey, officer," said, "arrest me." I said, "Arrest you?" He said, "Oh, I'm supposed to arrest you for it." He said, "Because I'm wanted." So I called in and asked if this guy was actually wanted. They said, "Yeah." So I said, "Okay, you're arrested." He said, "Okay, I'm arrested." And I said, "Why don't you come with me?" And he said, "I'll do it." I walked him right over here in the back of the jail and walked him right in. He's under arrest. He could have torn me apart real easy, but he was just one of those guys that decided to turn himself in and get it over with.
On duty, Bentley carries no gun. He disarms with a smile and a wave.
So I just like people. Morning, Ed.
All of us know someone like Arden Bentley. People who fill the gaps. They do the things that we take for granted. They are the grease in life's machine.
Yeah, pretty much a typical day. Not quite as warm as I'd like, but a typical day. Yeah, it wasn't bad. Go home and call her quits for this day.
Men like Arden Bentley are never missed until they're gone.
Okay, gal. Good night.
This is Larry Hatteberg.
What a wonderful guy. It's what makes small towns special.
It is. Everybody loved him in this town, and unfortunately Arden passed away, as we all will. He passed away in 1999 at the age of 78.
Now to a really interesting lady with something wonderful to show us.
Now her name is Brenda Hall. She lived in McPherson, and she had one of the most remarkable collections in her home when I paid her a visit in 2010. Take a look.
If bringing all this into my home, to my bedroom, my bathrooms, my kitchen, my everything, if just for that little bit of time that my grandchildren are here, they can dream that impossible dream.
But impossible no more. Surrounded by African-American figurines that represent every part of her heritage, Brenda Hall now has a collection that was impossible when she was growing up.
It's a good feeling when you walk in a store and you see those and you think, oh, that is beautiful.
In past years, African Americans weren't represented in dolls and figurines. They were invisible. Invisible until that one day she went into a store and saw her first one.
But this particular day, there was a little black figurine sitting there that caught my eye, and I thought, man, that's for me.
Now she is surrounded by hundreds of them in every room and in each face, someone familiar.
Most of these pieces, I see somebody I know in that piece. An aunt or an uncle, or, oh, that looks like my cousin, oh, that looks like my grandson. Surprisingly enough, most of these lines are by white artists. How can they get us so distinctly? It's just beautiful. The details are just incredible.
But perhaps her favorite figurines are the ones that represent church. Her father was a pastor.
Dad pastored all my growing up years, and so this was my little haven. This is what I'm all about. This is all we had for hundreds of years, was our faith. And then you'd go, and that was your getaway place, a time for the ladies to put their hats on. You know, you get gussied up and you'd get going, and you know, it was just a place of, from the time we stepped foot in there, just a air of enthusiasm and joy and everything. And as I look at the people on these pews, it reminds me of my church days, from the tambourine to the choir to the ushers, just everything. So when I started building my church, then that was my endeavor, was to bring a part of me into my home. And I can't imagine not having my church.
The figurines also give hope to her grandchildren.
A picture's worth 1,000 words. And when you're looking at what you want to be, and there's a reflection of you looking back, it looks like it's attainable. What better way than to put the things that we love around us to help us be happy? And it reflects me. And when you're in the midst of all of this, you can't help but happy. I can shut the door, shut out the cold, mean world, and I'm happy. I'm happy and I'm content.
What an incredible collection.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I walked in there.
Yeah, we'd like to know if she is still collecting or what may have become of her and her figurines, but guess what? We've had no luck in finding out.
Yeah, zero luck in this. Now, if you happen to know, please drop us a line at hattebergspeople@kpts.org.
Now we're going to head west to Dodge City, where a local artist was making the most remarkable projects out of the most unremarkable material. Here's Larry from 1999.
Well, most of us think of corrugated cardboard as that box our stuff came in. We toss out the box, we relegate it to the landfill, and we move on. But Jesse Montez of Dodge City says, hey, not so fast. For him, this worthless cardboard is turned into priceless art.
If anybody wants to know where it comes from Dodge City, Kansas.
Look closely at this artwork. I mean real close. It's cardboard from old pizza and packing boxes.
It's recycled art.
In his tiny home workshop in Dodge City, this former laborer and custodian creates art few have ever seen.
Well, sometimes it starts in your head, and then you put it down on paper. It looks terrible in there. But by the time you do it on cardboard...
By the time he translates it from paper to cardboard, the results are spectacular.
It's time-consuming, difficult, perhaps because it takes a lot of time.
And time he has. In his world of cardboard strips, the cluttered workspace contrasts with the ease at which this man moves through life.
But this is really time-consuming. It's for a person that worries about tomorrow. What am I going to do tomorrow? I don't worry about what I'm going to do tomorrow.
From humble beginnings in Mexico, Jesse creates art that celebrates life. But he's reluctant to call himself an artist.
I could never deserve the title of an artist. What I know, I didn't learn. I discovered it. It was there. But I have to cut it pretty close. Otherwise, it'll show. Put a little dot here.
In detail requiring infinite patience, Jesse's work requires mind-numbing concentration. And it is for that reason he started this art 10 years ago. 2 of his children were in Desert Storm, so he wouldn't worry about them. He began his art.
I create my own picture and I make my own pieces, and then when I glue them together, sometimes something good comes out.
In his hands, recycled cardboard begins a whole new life, yet Jesse Montez refuses to see himself as an artist.
People got interested in my work, and I'm forever grateful to them. I am what I am, and I'm contented.
That's hard to believe. It just comes from this cardboard, isn't it? Well, Jesse's art is being noticed, as you might imagine. A Garden City art patron took his work to a gallery in New York where several pieces have already been sold. Cardboard art from a man who just shakes his head when people call him an artist. Well, Jesse, trust me, you are an artist. See, I told you this guy was just incredible, and Jesse got national attention for his cardboard art. Unfortunately, he has since passed away, but you'll find his work in private and public art collections all across the country.
Really? Across the country?
Across the country. He was very, very well known.
So cool. Okay, well, guess what? That's all for this week. But there is another Hatteberg's People coming up next week. Until then, I'm Susan Peters.
And I'm Larry Hatteberg. Thanks so much for watching.
The preceding program was brought to you by TZ Productions, supporting KPTS and the communities it serves in South Central Kansas. Great starts here on KPTS.